Growing up, I worked as a summer camp counselor at Gold's Gym Summer Camp in LaGrange. It was probably one of the best jobs that I ever had and probably ever will have. It was so much fun to be able to work with all the kids. I had a great team of other counselors. Our administrators were so supportive, and it was just such a very creative environment. I had the opportunity to do and learn so many different things. My time with Gold's Gym Summer Camp allowed me to learn many practical things, like to be able to fix and build stuff with my hands, use tools, but also it was a playground of creativity and trying out new things. It was truly a spontaneous work environment, and it really taught me a lot about improvising and just going with the flow. One story that I'll never forget comes from one of my later years as a camp counselor. One day, there was this awful storm that came through. Torrential rain, flooding, tornado sightings, trees and power lines down, and lightning all over the place. And the scary thing was that a bolt of lightning hit the gym, and it freaked out everyone. The sound and the roar and the feel of the thunder just shook everything. So what we did, we brought all of the kids into the central hallway away from all windows. This was probably the most secure and safe place for everybody to be kept. Now, this was around what was supposed to be checkout time. So we had about 150 kids here, worried about this storm, half of them crying to no end. And I don't blame them. It was a scary situation. I was trying to think of ways to relieve the situation, and then this hit me. I remembered that there were guitars in one of the back closets. We would have guitar lessons, a part of one of our early late programs. So I ran back and I grabbed a guitar. Immediately, I started playing for all the kids in the hallway. I thought of every major pop song I could think of. I think I did Can't Stop the Feeling, Shut Up and Dance, Don't Stop Believing. I was trying to encourage kids to sing along, to clap along, and the other counselors caught on to what I was doing, and they were trying to get into it as well. And I remember looking over at a couple counselors and just going, "Is it working?" And they're just like, keep going. So we were getting the kids' minds off of everything. I even went so far as to play Wonderwall. Yes, one of the counselors called out, "Play Wonderwall," and got all the kids chanting for it. Like they know what Wonderwall is. They just love a good chant. But it brought everybody together. It took a very scary moment that everybody was really fearful of, even the adults. And we were able to make it a community building moment. Everybody came together in song and were able to overstep those fears and be able to ride out the storm, literally. And that's just the incredible power that music has. It has the ability to bring us together. It has the ability to bridge gaps. It has an ability to get the best out of all of us, regardless of the situation. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Walsh Wednesday, the Reflective Series. Today's guest is Debbie Major. Debbie is the Executive Director of Zylofone, and she's a local musician to the New York area. In this episode, Debbie and I are going to talk about how she was able to take the creative arts and use that to help people with special needs to be able to blossom and shine with their brightest potential. Besides that, we're also going to talk about her own music career and much, much more. All of that right after this. I want to say thank you to all the listeners out there. Whether you're listening to this podcast, to my album Away From Home and other releases, and simply just following along with whatever I have to offer. I mentioned this before, but this podcast is kind of like my therapy. I get to talk about subjects that mean a lot to me, and I get to share the stories of incredible people. Any and every little bit of support has been appreciated, and I love the little community that we've carved out for ourselves. Obviously, there are so many ways to support, but I suggest checking out my Patreon page and perhaps purchasing my album on Bandcamp or downloading it wherever you choose to listen to your music. And of course, word of mouth. All of y'all being helpers and telling others what we have going on here means a lot. And hey, if there's anything or anyone you might want to hear on this podcast, let me know. So, thank you from the bottom of my heart. After a year like 2020, I have no idea what 2021 has in store, but I look forward to tackling it all with you. As I mentioned before, today's guest is Debbie Major. Now, Debbie is the Executive Director of Zylofone, and she's also a local musician. Before we really got into the nitty-gritty of the interview, I wanted to compliment her on her background. I love the little decorations that you have up on your wall there. Family, home, love, faith. It's so cute. I love that.
Thank you.
Obviously good for the holidays, but I imagine it's just a bright spot to look at all year round.
I got it from my sister. She gave all of us one of those. We have a big family, so we have that sort of connection. Whenever you see that, I think of them.
Oh, that's so sweet. Oh, heartwarming. I love it. Now, I originally met Debbie through my cousin Alan's friend, Bill Murphy, who works for Zylofone. They were throwing together their annual rockathon, and Bill knew that I was a musician, so he asked if I would like to perform. And the rest was history. I was hooked, and I absolutely fell in love with the organization, and I fell in love with what they were doing there at the rockathons. I love the sense of community. I could just feel it that first time that I came in, just how tight-knit and loving the whole organization is, just from one day. That's amazing.
We do have a group, man. We have a serious group. And like you mentioned, I'm a local musician, and I'm lucky that because Zylofone is wrapped around music, a lot of the local musicians I know have been a huge help throughout, the journey of Zylofone. So I'm so happy you were able to do the Rockathon, and I'm really sad that it couldn't happen this year. And we had a really big one planned too. It gets bigger every year.
Oh, I know. I can tell. And hopefully, maybe next year, 2022. Who knows? We'll keep our eyes and ears out and stay safe about it. So yeah, for everybody out there unaware of Zylofone and what Zylofone does, can you give us like a general overview of the organization and how things got started?
The inception of Zylofone was when my son Gage, I have twin boys. They're both on the spectrum. That's what we call it now when somebody is autistic or has the autism spectrum, around them. Both of my children are on the spectrum, and my son Gage also has cerebral palsy. He never really even had any clue that he was disabled because that was not a big focus for us about him. So he loved acting in high school, loved acting, and he loved being in the theater productions and loved singing. Music was big in my home. That was a good connection for the two of them. For those of you who may or may not know about autism is very socially interrupting. The connections between people in general are very limited. It depends on the severity. The spectrum is very, very big. Even though they were twins, my boys did not connect very, very much. They were two different entities completely, even though they were twins. So music was what kept our family very connected. So once Gage graduated from high school, he asked me, going into college, he wanted to make sure he could study acting. Cognitively, Gage had some challenges. He obviously had physical challenges. So I looked and searched and could not find anything for him as a person with a disability, which to me was so frustrating and made me so mad. I want my kids, like every mom, like every dad, you want your kids to have everything that they deserve and want. And, within the limits of what you can afford to do for them. And I just thought this was a shame. And at the time, I was on the board of directors at Crystal Run Village, which is a management company in our area. My thoughts started, like there should be a place in the area that offers, a creative theater music program for people that have challenges. Why not, right? Now, you have to understand, I have been a musician my entire life, but didn't know anything about running a business like this. So I got some coaching, and I had a lot of really important, I think, very influential people in our area, in the Orange County area, to step in and say, this might not be a bad idea to do something like this. I don't think anything's ever been done to this degree. So I started the nonprofit back in 2011. And Gage graduated in 2010. And by 2011, we had started a theater program. I was renting space from Crystal Run in it's like almost a basement area. And over the years, we have grown and worked in not just the Orange County area. We are now in Westchester, in Sullivan County, in Dutchess County, and Rockland County also. So we have been pushing out into group homes, into senior facilities, day hab centers, and schools. And we also have our own studio in Campbell Hall, which recently, because of the COVID, we had to close. So Zylofone, we tried very, 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 very hard for about 6 months. And in October, we ended up having to close. You just run out of money. And every place that we worked at and the people that we worked with were all locked down. And there was no funding for this part of their life. This is very recreational and a lot of fun. And I think they need it, but I think health, safety, and education is primary right now in everybody's mind. So we've taken a stopping point. We're trying to figure out what we're going to do next. But in the meantime, music, rock on.
No, of course. And it's such a hard time right now with COVID, and regardless of anything, the arts have been hit hard. And it's so tough, as you said, like group homes and things like that. My grandmother's in an assisted living facility, so I have a sense of some of it. I'm just learning. They do get hit hard, and humans are very social creatures, and it's so tough when, regardless of whatever situation you're in,
yes,
you always want to have some kind of human connection. This year has definitely brought us to our limits at times.
And it's what's harder. Even a lot of people, I want to call people that people call normal, typical people, don't really understand the ramifications for people in group homes or in senior places where their routine is really critical to their mental health. Once you have pulled people out of their lives that are very routine, that especially if you have Alzheimer's or dementia, if those people aren't front and center, they start to go backwards. They can't remember. And same with group homes. My son Jacob lives in a group home, and his day hab program just stopped. We weren't able to go see him for months. We weren't able to, to hold him, to let him know everything was going to be okay. And that kind of tragic stuff is just very peripheral. You don't even hear about it, but that's very, very tragic too. Gosh, we were talking about hospitals before, and you couldn't even go in. If you were giving birth to a baby, you couldn't have all your people there. If somebody was passing away, nobody was there with them. And this year has been a big challenge for many, 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 many people. So I feel very blessed, even though Zylofone is one of the tragic things and casualty. We are up and alive and kicking and doing other things and figuring it out,
As the saying goes, as one door closes, another door opens. Many people throughout 2020 and the COVID-19 pandemic have had to learn to adapt in order to make things work in this time of mayhem. But during this time of mayhem, there are positives that are coming out of it with ingenuity and creativity. So I wanted to talk to Debbie about some of the positive things that have come out of the programs that she has worked on during this period.
Right at the beginning of the COVID, all of the school districts we were in, we tried to get on Zoom, what we're doing right now, and interact with them at home, work with some of our day hab programs in their centers when they were there or in their group homes. Zoom is an awesome channel, but it also has limitations. When what Zylofone does is we interact. We are very, very social. One of the things that happened was the Newburgh School District had hired us to do a sort of a program, a project for them that was an after-school program that was an asynchronous type of thing, which means that it was pre-recorded, sent out as sort of a show or a cartoon or a Zylofone session, a 30-minute session. We did that, a 9-week program for them 3 days a week. So we did 27 30-minute videos for the school district for K through second graders, which was brand new, trying to figure out how to do something that is interactive without seeing if you're making a difference. One of the things I pride myself in is being able to watch people while we're working and shift if we need to. You see how they're reacting or not reacting. A lot of our children or adults have, sensory issues. So maybe the music's too loud, or you're doing something that's too difficult for them. So you shift right away. And this was a challenge because there's no way to know how we're impacting what it is they're doing in that moment. So I learned a lot about producing videos and how to continue to keep their attention, which is hard. So we had like every 5 minutes was something new to keep them moving, And so we just finished the project, and I'm excited about what it is that we learned how to do. And who knows? I mean, we don't know how long this is going to go on, and we could certainly do it again if we need to. It was challenging and fun all at the same time, kept me very, very busy.
One thing that I feel is that there are still a lot of misconceptions about people with special needs. And here we are in the 21st century, and I feel like there's still so many unknowns in the mainstream for how far we've quote unquote come along. So I wanted to ask Debbie a little bit about those misconceptions that she's noticed, and then how she's seen music be able to bridge those gaps.
Okay, that's so easy. One of the things I think that is most important is when you work with anybody, music touches everybody very personally. Everybody has their own genre of music that makes them feel something, or that elicits a memory, or connects them to something in their own spirit and their heart. Like dealing with seniors, they may not remember the people that are coming in to visit them, but they remember music. Most seniors, most people that have dementia or Alzheimer's, music is the thing that stays alive the longest. It's a part of the brain we're finding that is so connected and so alive all the time. They may not know, their wife that comes in, or their husband or their kids, but they remember a Frank Sinatra song that they had their first dance to, or they remember every word. They remember every part of the melody. So when you can bring something to somebody that opens something up for them individually, it's really freeing and very exciting. I mentioned that both of my children have autism. A lot of people think, well, if a person is nonverbal and they can't communicate with you, how do you know what they like? How can you be sure that you're reaching there? And my son Jacob for a long time didn't speak, but he sang. Now, how is that possible? Who knows? Gosh, he could sing music, and he knew when he did start talking, he remembered songs that we played on a trip to Disney. He remembered the song that we were in when we were on the train, a Pocahontas song. This is before he even spoke when we went to Disney. And 3 years later, he remembered that song. So music is such a force that it's so important to offer that kind of magic to everyone. It's insane not to do that, because it's such a joyful experience, and there's nothing but positive that music can do. Even if it brings you emotionally to tears, it's connecting you to your own spirit. It brings you to you and all of your emotions and feelings. So I think it's just, you and I are musicians. We know what it feels like to sing, to perform. There's nothing else like it. It's very cathartic. So imagine somebody that's kind of locked up in their own head or in space, that they can't really communicate. Music does it, because my sons always know the music they want. Never, ever did I wonder what kind of music worked for them. Even if they couldn't communicate to me personally, just watching them, you watch. And if they go over and turn the radio off, that's not the tune they want, or if they would hold their ears like, this is not pleasant for me. And then you put something on and you see them moving, or you see them get up, like, that's my song. It's just magic. That's all.
For sure. It's liberating to
That's a
anybody in
great word,
any
liberating.
degree.
Yes.
And no, that's absolutely really, really fascinating. I've said this for a long time. I did my, what was it? It was my senior thesis in high school, actually. It was on music education. Yeah, it just really clicked for me. Music is the universal language because it
Yeah.
conveys emotions better than any other form of communication, at least that I've found.
I know. It's our thing. This is what we do. This is what brings us the most joy. Like it lights us up in ways that nothing else can, like you said. Another thing, being creative is really your own personal thing. And we noticed, at first it was all about music and dance and theater. And then we brought art and the different ways that you can bring art into anything. There are so many different forms of art. And I've noticed a lot of people that even with cerebral palsy or physical challenges, you find a way when you need to express yourself through art, you find a way to do that. And everybody should have the opportunity to find that space wherever that is to be accepted without judgment and given a platform to express who they are. It's so critical. And so we saw the most incredible paintings and expressions, people that can't speak, can't see, can't hear. You'd be so, so shocked to see how much talent is out there. It's all in how you channel yourself.
Besides her work with Xylophone, as we mentioned at the very beginning of this episode, Debbie is a musician in her own right. She's had the opportunity to work with artists of all kinds, had the chance to go tour around, and has definitely made her mark on the New York music scene. So with all that being said, I wanted to talk to her about how this year has influenced her and other musicians around her.
For those people that may not know, in the music industry, the wintertime can be very, limited. You don't travel as much. You don't do any outdoor events. Obviously, weddings are not very prominent. Private parties in general kind of slow down after Christmas. So between January and April, I would say you kind of revisit your rehearsal schedule. You kind of put together and find new things to do. Maybe even do some recording at that time. So that was our first thought. Let's everybody get into the recording studio. And then we all, in my band, the John Bates Band, we all live pretty far away from one another. A couple of our guys live in New York City. Somebody lives in Brewster. A couple of guys live in Kingston. And here I'm in Orange County. The fear of getting together was really huge. Nobody wanted to leave their homes. We tried to do one of the, where you have to connect musically online. That can be very expensive and very, you can't really do it unless you have the means to do that. That's not just simply you just plug in music across the waves, disconnects timing, and you can't hear. And so you need all the good material and the good, source resources that many of us didn't have. So the John Bates Band came to a screeching halt. I would say 3/4 of our gigs were canceled this year. And I want to say we had a good 35 gigs that just got shot. A lot of them were away from home in Vermont, in Maine, in Martha's Vineyard, in all the places that we were doing weddings. And what a drag. So monetarily, that also puts a big crunch. As you know, when you're not playing out, you're not getting paid. And I would say the John Bates Band was a lucrative way for me to make a living. Xylophone is a nonprofit, so that's not a big money-making place. That's a big passion for me. Also, my band is, but in order to keep yourself going, how do you find music? I started playing piano more. I'm a pianist. I can play drums and piano. And I thought, this is the time. Your skills, what you can do. Performing. How do you get to perform? You don't get to perform. I'm lucky. I have a good friend of mine, Vinny Frisina, who I used to work with years ago in a band called Street Talk. So we've been doing a lot of duets in the area. Right now, we're working at the Bull's Head Inn over in Campbell Hall, and we do that every other Friday. So as long as the restaurant stays open, we're booked there to do every other Friday, and it's just a couple of hours, and it's awesome. It just gets you out there and perform a little bit and pushes all the juju out.
It makes all the difference.
It really does. So I'm happy to say that, I turned 62 this year. So I
Happy
am,
birthday.
thank you. And I'm learning how to adjust as a senior citizen in the area and not push myself to the point of being so stressed out about anything. You just have to find your good balance place, make sure that you don't look for things that are going to create problems. You try to find the positive always in everything. So that's what I'm trying to do.
No, of course. And that sounds great. And I'm glad that you're finding the music somehow, some way. And that's
Yeah.
beautiful. And I hope everything with the John Bates Band goes, comes back around and things work out together,
Me
because
too.
that's the band that you would perform with there at the Rockathon, right?
That's right.
Exactly. You guys were phenomenal. So no, that
Thank you.
needs to come back.
We have already got everybody rebooked us for next year, but cross your fingers that everything will continue to step away from the COVID, and that we'll all feel safe again to congregate and to share music again in weddings and private things that are going on, anniversaries. And oh my goodness, I feel so sad for the people that had to get married this year with just a few people, where they had, hundreds of people lined up, and all the catering places got all canceled, and it's affected so many businesses that you don't even think about if they don't relate to you. We appreciate everybody that has extra money right now, putting it where it's most important. Obviously, the election that just happened was a big swaying point for a lot of Americans, and how their money works and how their money doesn't work, and how their passion for this candidate or this candidate. It was a close call, so it was like nail biting there for a bit. See what happens next year, in the next 4 years.
One thing I just want to point out, you're all the people that you worked with in the past have already tried booking you already now, and I find that wonderful, whether it able to happen or not. I love first of all, the connect that shows exactly what can happen through connections and networking, and the proper relationships that you build, and the loyalty that you build, and the community that you build. And that's a huge testament to that. So I love that you said that.
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm excited about that. I mean, especially now, gosh, I want to say 40 years ago, when I was your age, trying to connect with people was so completely different. You had to leave a message on their voicemail at their home. There were no cell phones. There was no internet. There was no way you went to go hear a band, and the only way you knew about it was in the newspaper if they were performing, or if they called you. If they sent out mailers. So right now, the universe has really connected everybody to a place where it's shame on you if you don't know what's going on, and shame on you if you aren't proactive about your career, and making sure people remember who you are and know that you want to share who you are with them. And you're great about that. I mean, you have stuff coming out all the time, and and you're working hard at doing that, and you should be, because you're so young and this is the beginning of your career. And people are going to know who Connor Walsh is because you're making sure of that. So good for you.
That's so sweet. Thank you very much, Debbie. I appreciate that. One thing that Debbie and I were talking about before the interview was meditation and mindfulness. So I wanted to give her the opportunity to speak about how she finds her mindfulness in her day-to-day life.
That's a great question. I think meditation is very personal. I don't know that everybody meditates the same way. I'm sure they don't. I had to learn a long time ago, in a family of 6 siblings, you have to find space for yourself. So even though I didn't know I was meditating when I was a kid, you do things, you walk, you step out. I used to draw a lot. I used to write music a lot. That's a form of meditation all in itself. When I became a mom, gosh, every parent knows what this is like. When you've reached your limit, you have to separate yourself, even if it's for 5 or 10 minutes, so that you can, restart, reboot, so you can be calm again and be pleasant and not kill your children. My kids had many, many challenges. When you have children with disabilities, you don't know anything but that. Parents that feel sorry for my situation, it really is relative to what you do with your own life. I wanted kids terribly. I think my kids are amazing. Do I feel sorry for myself that I have children with disabilities? This is all I know. And my kids are incredible. Did they, challenges are challenges no matter what. When you have kids, you find yourself reaching a limit. They left their toys out. They're screaming at each other. They're throwing things, whatever. Or you're tired or whatever. My kids didn't speak for a very, very long time. They were toddlers, so they were like 9. So I just had to figure it out. You figure it out and you get other people in there to help you. So when I had the time, I just had to find a way to slow my brain down and breathe. It's important to have that quiet place that's just for you. So I find that it's critical for everybody to have it. I hope everybody has it. I don't know what they call it, and you might call it something different than meditating, but I think I'm sure everybody in some way or not find a way to connect to that part of yourself. I do angel readings also. So that also helps me to meditate and helps to connect with another person in a meditative way. So that's always been a saving grace for me also.
I was just having a few conversations with some friends about meditation recently, and we're all saying the way that we find that state of mindfulness and just that sense of quiet is all different, but we all feel like we come to the same place regardless of it.
It's a peace and balance is what it is. Peaceful
definitely.
Balance. Mm-hmm.
For me, I find that I get my best state of meditation when I'm doing like my morning stretches. I have a whole stretch and workout routine that I do. I do the stretches. I feel what's going on in my body. I focus on my breathing. And it's not that I'm trying to shut out everything in my head. It just slows everything down so that I'm aware of what's in my head.
It's really fascinating when you think about how much is going on simultaneously in your head. One of the things that was so funny when my son Gage went for a driving test to see if he could drive, they say 10 things are going on simultaneously when you drive. I bet you didn't even know that.
I'm not surprised.
And if you don't have at least 7 of those things, you can't drive. Yeah. And so think about the multitasking your body does from the time that you wake up. People now wake up and they grab their phone. So before they're even out of bed, they're checking messages. They're thinking forward about the day, getting up to brush their teeth, trying to establish, what to wear, what's the weather like, where am I going right now, how much time do I have, do I need to do laundry, what can I have for breakfast, all this stuff that you're doing simultaneously. And it's so important to stop and just breathe. Feel the breath inside of your body. I wear earplugs when I sleep so I can hear my heart beating and so I can hear my breathing all night when I'm sleeping, and it helps me to sleep better so I don't hear any noise outside. Now, I couldn't do that when I had kids living here because you need to keep your ears and eyes open all night. But when I started, when my kids moved out, what a peaceful thing that is to hear and feel your own breathing in your heart.
I love that.
I just want to say really quickly, one of the things that was really positive for me when this COVID hit, not because of the COVID, but my son Gage, my kids are going to be 30 this coming year, has lived at home with me his entire life and was able to find an apartment for the very first time and live on his own.
That's awesome.
Because when you're a mom, you want to make sure that your kid can be independent, independent and can write checks and pay their bills and feed themselves and, find a social atmosphere without you in it. So yay, good for Gage.
Congratulations. That must be something to be so proud of.
It's so exciting because I was always scared about how are we going to get Gage on his own? He's dually disabled. Who's going to watch out for him? And, the universe found a way and he's doing great.
That's beautiful. And I'm so happy to hear. So to wrap up this episode, I wanted to ask Debbie, what what does the future for Zylofone look like, along with her other musical passions?
That's a good question. I am going to be going back into the recording studio over the winter. We're figuring out a way to do that, so I'm hoping to do some recording. Just a quick hint, this is something that John told me, John Bates, a while ago. Anytime you're in the recording studio and you have musicians around you, try to do a Christmas song, because Christmas always, you can put that on any CD. You can also start to accumulate or compile a Christmas CD or a Christmas EP. So if you have your group, find a song you want to remake or that you just want to sing. Maybe you can write a Christmas song. So we're going to go in and do some Christmas stuff. I'm also going to be writing, and I'm to kind of bring money in, and I'm excited to learn the new job. That's just something to do while I'm figuring out what to do. I am going to be putting Zylofone over here for a moment until we figure out what is going to be happening. Funding for a lot of our groups, funding has stopped for recreational things like Zylofone. I'm not going to let that keep me from growing. Although Zylofone is in a pausing place, we're waiting for some of the funding to come back for people that have challenges, so that we can get back into what we're doing. In the meantime, I am working on a project with a group of 6 people that is going to be a dating scene to help coach people on the spectrum to help them date, and to have seminars and to do some dating games to get them to socialize and learn how dating works and all the nuances of dating. So that's in the background. My music therapist that worked for Zylofone is opening her own business, and she's going to be doing a lot of stuff that Zylofone was doing, and also attaching farming to some of that and animals. So she's got a really fun thing she's developing right now, and I'm going to keep you guys posted about that. In the meantime, I know I haven't seen Bill Murphy. He's your friend from so long ago, and I miss seeing all of my folks from Zylofone. So a big shout out to Bill for connecting us. I hope I get to see you next year. I don't know exactly what we're going to be doing, but let's just keep in contact.
You can't keep a good thing down. And Debbie and all that she's doing is proof and evidence of that. Regardless of whatever shape that good is conceived in, it's going to still be out there, shining its light, spreading its wings, and singing loud for all to hear, and just sending this joyful energy and positive energy into the world. So that's why I was really grateful to have Debbie come on this episode of Walsh Wednesday. And I'm very grateful that you tuned into this episode as well. The fact that you're listening means that you probably, somewhere in your heart, somewhere in your life, you support and you love and you care for these things too. So thank you so much, not just for supporting this podcast, but for supporting the arts and believing in all that they can be in general. This has been another episode of Walsh Wednesday, the Reflective Series. Again, I want to thank Debbie Major for coming on and speaking about all of her experiences. We greatly appreciate it, and I hope that it meant something to all of you guys out there. As always, I'm Connor Walsh, and I'm glad we get to spend some time.